Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our Lunch and Learn interview. As you know, one of the themes for 2021 is leadership, which I define as see a need, meet a need. By that definition, our guest today, Ms. Delaram Ghanimifard, the founder of Tiny Owl, an independent publishing house, clearly is a leader. Ms. Ghanimifard was born in 1973 in Tehran. She married at 18 and had her first child at 21. This meant that she had to leave university and stay home to care for her son. 6 years later, she was brave enough to have her second child, but when he was 2 years old, she decided that she had to go back to university and continue her studies, or she would regret it later on in life. So after being a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, she went back to school. When she completed her MA, she got a PhD offer from a university in London, and in 2010, she came to the UK with her family to study. 5 years later, she started Tiny Owl with her husband to publish picture books for children. At that time, their younger son, Nikan, was 9 years old and just starting to learn to read and write in English. She looked for books for him to read, but there were very few that showed characters who looked like him or reflected his culture. Having worked in the publishing industry, Ms. Ghanimifard and her husband decided to start publishing picture books that introduce other cultures to children in the UK. Their motto is "Picture books for everyone." Their first books were translations of the best children's books from Iran. They then began to commission new books from brilliant authors and illustrators around the world. Tiny Owl believes that diverse books belong in the center, not at the margins. All children deserve to see themselves in the books they read, regardless of gender, ethnicity, culture, or social status. Tiny Owl works closely with teachers and librarians to help get diverse and inclusive books into the hands of children who need them. Welcome to Lunch and Learn, Delaram. I can't tell you how delighted I am that you're able to join us from London today. Before we dive into the interview, have I missed or misstated anything in my introduction?
Not really. I mean, no, I think you've said it all. Yeah, we started Tiny Owl in 2015, but I actually started to gather some information about publishing and how to do it since 2012. And by 2015, we were ready to publish our first book in January. So that's some more details.
That's interesting. We will be dissecting the arc of where you started and where you are today. So that's actually very helpful to place it in time. Now, last week when you and I were enjoying our first conversation about how you came to start Tiny Owl, I asked you how you found the courage to do it. From your answer, I think we can say that you found yourself in a position where ignorance is bliss, which is to say that since you had no idea what you were getting into, courage was not an issue. Is this a fair way to characterize your attitude going in?
A little bit. I mean, actually, it was a difficult decision because I was studying and I had to give up some part of my studies to start this new journey, which I didn't know how it's going to end or where it leads. And I didn't know how to start or where to start. It was scary from the beginning, but I really didn't know how deep this is going to be. And well, as you say, I didn't know much about it, so it was a bliss. but but it was scary from the beginning. I can say that. And I really had to gather all my courage to start this new journey.
And did your husband have any experience either in business or in book publishing? I mean, the two of you started it together.
Yes, well, we weren't publishers before,
Hmm.
but we were in journalism. And I mean, I was, my husband was more, but I was like more of a freelance journalist.
Hmm.
And we had some friends in publishing before. And we had authors and illustrator friends who knew a little bit about publishing, but that was all in Iran. So it was totally different from what we experienced here in the UK, and then later outside, I mean, in the US and in other countries. So yes, we thought we had the experience.
How little we know before we jump in, but then once you're in, you have to sink or swim. So
Yeah.
taking just a little step back, I'm wondering, did your academic studies prepare you in any way for starting Tiny Owl, or was it, or not? I mean, I just wondered.
I don't think so. I mean, if it did, because I studied sociology and political science, so it was totally different.
Mm.
But I think that I knew if I wanted to do anything else outside academia, it would be something to do with culture.
Mm.
So, and I had children, so that was the nearest thing that I could think of, or I was living actually. So that's why I think I started Tiny Owl.
Mm. Well, they say follow your passion, and clearly you felt very strongly that children like your children were missing out when they couldn't find books that spoke to them, that reflected their reality. And I suppose if you're going to take a big step like starting a business, you have to believe, in a sense, in your mission. So I guess that was really what helped you to get started. So
Yes, it was. Yes, and there was something else too. So it was about my child knowing about his background and culture, but also it was about introducing that culture to other children and his friends. They needed to know each other. So that was important, really important, I think.
And I suppose one of the things I've noticed in the age of the internet is there is almost a flattening of cultural specificity, because it's almost as if people communicate so quickly and look for the ways in which they can connect, but they don't take the time to understand the beautiful ways in which people are also different. So it's important to be able to appreciate both the things that we share and the ways in which we are different without being frightened by them, I suppose you could
Yes,
say.
exactly. And it was all the hostility also about different cultures.
Mm.
And us being from Iran specifically, or being Muslims, and all of that, you know, in a community that's when children and adults don't know each other, misunderstanding just grows.
Yeah.
So it has to start somewhere in childhood, I think,
Mm-hmm.
where you can be friends and you're not biased that much, and you can understand and read and well, have fun also.
And I suppose you're also curious, which this
Yeah.
curiosity gets deadened for many people as they get older. They want to be able to pigeonhole somebody neatly and move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Wow. Well, thanks for the overview of what started you on this journey, Delaram. And now, could you take a few minutes and maybe share some stories about the early days of Tiny Owl? For one thing, how did you come up with the name, and what does it mean to you?
Well, well, I came by Tiny Owl on the internet. It was a
Hmm.
very cute picture of a small owl. I really loved it. But then I thought it's a perfect, because we were thinking about names for Tiny Owl and a logo. But I thought this one is something that is universal, is not specific to one culture. And it's about knowledge and about children, and about and about us as a small publisher. So all of those could be seen in this title. I thought it was just perfect. And well, yes, Tiny Owl Publishing, the initials come up to top. So
okay, there's a secret message in there.
Well,
no, but it has to mean something to you. When I first saw the name Tiny Owl Publishing, I was looking for a friend who's trying to publish a book, and I went there specifically because I was intrigued by Tiny Owl. And then I saw the logo, and the logo is in fact very cute. And for people who are watching this, I am at the end of the interview going to go through a PowerPoint presentation, which will include the logo, and the PowerPoint will show covers of some of the books that Tiny Owl has published and is planning to publish. So I guess you'll all get a chance to see the Tiny Owl that Delaram and I are thinking about when we discuss it. Okay, so I guess it was an easy decision then. You didn't really have to fight over it, you and your husband, about what it was going to be called.
We both agreed on it. We had a lot of thought before and different names, and we couldn't decide. The pronunciations were difficult, or you had to really look up on Google to find out what the meaning of the word is, because we wanted it to represent maybe Iran in a way, but then said, forget it. Tiny Owl is about children.
Exactly.
So yeah, we agreed on it.
So tell us about your first book. How was it dealing with that? You must have learned a lot of things, both, and made some mistakes, but also eventually succeeded because you were able to publish it. So tell us a bit about how that first book came into being.
Well, we didn't start with one book. We selected 10 titles.
Wow.
And we really took our time to find the best, and translate them and edit them, and have it edited 2 times, once for just even a cultural edit to make it more approachable. And but the first book that we published was something that I had read in my childhood. And I think most of Iranian children now and before my age know this book. The book turned 50 years just 2 years ago.
MashaAllah. Is the author still alive?
No, the author died when he was very young. So he's not alive, but I felt that I really needed to publish that book because the message is about courage and taking a different path, an unknown one, and independence and finding your way. So the title is The Little Black Fish. And it's about this fish that goes from the pond to find the ocean, and on the way faces all the dilemmas and dangers, and finds his way. So now that I'm talking about it, I feel that it's also kind of our own story.
Yes, it's a metaphor for your journey.
Yes. Yes, it's written by Samad Behrangi. The illustrator is still alive, and this book has won awards internationally for its illustrations, and the book is still a bestseller in Iran, and it was banned for a few years, I think. In pre-revolution Iran, and then after that again it was banned for a few years, but really everybody loves it. And
so that one, let me see if I understand. That book had existed and you read it when you were a child and were very much inspired by it, you and a lot of people now your age who were children. I assume it was illustrated at the time.
Yes.
Aha. So when you published it, you did it with a translation, but did you also have new illustrations done for it, or was it, did
No,
you use
I mean,
the
the book
original?
was translated before with other
Ah,
illustrations. What it
okay.
made it unique for us was the original illustrations, because those were the ones that won awards internationally.
Okay.
And the illustrator has won a very prestigious award, the Hans Christian Andersen Award, in, I think it was 1973 or 4, so long time ago. Yes, and we published this book. It was, I remember that the day that the book was published, actually the day that I got the advanced copy of it, and it was published a month after that. And I was so worried because I thought, what if it has a mistake somewhere in it? And I thought, oh, it's going to be the end of the world. But
clearly not.
Came out, and it was really nice. After it was in 2018, I think, that we had something done with it at Hay Festival in the UK, and it was a play. So like a theater and children came to see it, and I feel really emotional to see all of that, because I thought, oh, I've done this. I owe this to the author.
Yes, it's a transformation of the author's vision, and that's one that has really found a resonance, and it's achieving what you wanted, for people to see and understand a story from a different culture and then make it their own.
Yes, and I was very happy that we could do that.
Well, that was your first title, but you said you had 10 in mind when you started. Were you able to get all 10 of them into publication, or did you have to drop any of the first 10?
We did, eventually we did, but we decided to, so after we edited all the books and translated them, edited them, and found the printer, got it printed, but then we had to find a distributor and a representative to go and show it to the shops and libraries and buyers, potentially, because they wouldn't see us. They wanted to see a rep. And we didn't know that. So, but it was good for us, because they gave us some advice as to how to print the books, the better way to publish it, when to publish it, or how. So they told us it's better to publish each one in a month. So we had 10 books, and it took a year to publish all of them. I mean, actually, we published 9 books in the first year. Then in the second year, we published the other book and more books that we found, and we published again.
Well, now that you've been in business for a while, are you still involved in every aspect of Tiny Owl, or do you have reliable staff working with you? And also, have you more or less settled into an established routine for getting a book from idea to finished product? So, for example, how do you find new authors and illustrators? And you've just said you had no idea about marketing, but now at least you do have a relationship with a distributor. So I assume that most of your marketing is done on the advice of and through your distributor. But just tell us a little bit about these nuts and bolts.
Well, yes, we actually found an editor, in-house editor for books, but we had to, and a designer and a publisher assistant to help with us with everything. And we had a publicist, but we had to let them all go. You know, after the pandemic, we couldn't afford to keep all our colleagues like that. So we work with people, but on a freelance basis. So yes, we have editors, we have designers, we work with agents to find authors and illustrators, and we have those networks now. We have ties with some authors who really want to work with us and illustrators. And we find new illustrators through universities, and when they graduate and they have this show of the graduate students. And so there's a lot, and book fairs. And we attend book fairs to show our books and then also meet illustrators and authors to find ideas. We sometimes have our own ideas and we tell them to agents or to authors, and they see if they can put that into a story, or I mean, when it's just an idea of a concept, it's not a story actually. So we think we had this call out for stories against war, stories about peace, and so some authors and illustrators came forward and gave us some books, some stories that they thought it would work, and we choose between them. So we have all ways to find new authors or stories that we want to publish. Yes, but we have that routine that you're talking about. So we know where it starts, how it develops, and how when we give the layout, give the artwork to the designer to have the first layouts, and then the drafts, and then again the corrected layouts, make it ready for print and send it to printers. We try different printers to see which one is a better quality or give us the better price, and we changed our distributor. So after a few years we thought that we need a better distributor, because we thought that we have grown, but our distributor is not really helping us to get our books out there. So we now work with a good distributor, actually a very prestigious publisher that also distributes our books around the world. And we have our own publishing and distribution, separate distribution in North America, and our publicist team over there. And we have our teaching network, so teachers and schools and librarians. We have that network, and we have a very good relationship with them. We try to produce activity sheets and teacher resources for them to help them to use the books.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. So it really is an adventure in education as well as just storytelling, because you have a purpose beyond just creating beautiful books. You want them to be used pedagogically to broaden children's horizons.
Yes, I mean, it's that, but we don't want it to be, educational books in that sense that you take the fun out of it. So
I love to read. I mean. I never thought it was a big, but yes, I know. I do know. Yes, but that's it. You don't want heavy-handed pedagogy. You want.
Yes, exactly. We don't want it to say this is right, this is wrong. It's too direct.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but, I mean, it sounds like you had to learn everything more or less by trial and error, but you're more comfortable now. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we had people who could advise us, but we had to learn it ourselves. I think we weren't in publishing here in this country before, so we didn't have the first-hand experience ourselves. We had to gain that.
Well, it sounds as if you were very persistent, and so far, alhamdulillah, so good. You're growing, you're getting a name. And I've got you now, and so I'm getting to interview you. Woo woo. Okay, so let me ask you something that I'm sure is sort of on your mind, which is we're still in a pandemic. I know that in the UK and even in the United States and in most of Europe, where people are beginning to get, broadly speaking, vaccinated. But I assume you also have writers and illustrators in other areas of the world. And I'm sure that the pandemic must have disrupted how you do business as well, including, how you check galley copies and, just all of these things. How have you managed to adapt during the COVID pandemic?
Well, I mean, that side of the work is not affected that much because even before the pandemic, we did most of this digitally. So we had Skype calls and Zoom calls and used everything like WhatsApp or everything really to talk with our when we couldn't meet our authors or illustrators. And they sent us their stuff, and it was phone calls and those long distance relations to sort things out. But the pandemic has affected us in another way, and that's in the closure of libraries and schools even, and shops, bookshops. Well, then we have this other platforms to sell books, our own website and Amazon that we're not that much fond of. But these are new ways that you have to.
You got to adapt. I think you also have a Facebook page, don't you?
We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We have we try to use as much as we can all
the
social
media.
Yes.
Yes, well, thank God for that, because I think for somebody doing what you do, it's good you've been able to continue. Have you been able to publish new titles in the past year?
Oh, yes. Well, in past years, some of our publisher friends decided to reduce their work or even stop for a while and change the routes. But we decided to go on and do what we were doing. So we didn't stop. We managed to produce 8 titles for this year.
Ooh,
and
that's good.
But that's all. But we are under pressure, so we had to reduce that for next year.
Oh, okay.
So we're publishing less titles, 4 titles for next year, but we're hoping to make that work and, well, maybe have more titles for 2022.
Mm-hmm. But your whole back catalogue is available. How many titles do you have altogether?
Oh, well, I have to think. I think it's more.
Roughly.
I think 35 titles. I think 35 titles.
Okay. And are they aimed at a particular age range, or do you publish in several different age ranges?
We publish picture books, so everything that is picture book. And the oldest age that we have published for is 11. Mm-hmm. Although I say that our books don't have age, so right. There are some of our books are really philosophical, and you get different messages in different stages of life when you read them. Mm-hmm. And the art is something that you can show it to a child, and also it's not the cartoony style picture books that you get most of the time. Mm-hmm. So there is really art quality to it, and so I think this makes it suitable for all ages. But we have books for 0 to 11 if you want to put it in that bracket.
And then for them, when they become parents, so they can share it with their children. I
Yes.
still have a couple of books that I remember reading as a child that were published in Egypt in the Green Library series, had beautiful illustrations. And so even though the stories are very familiar, I still enjoy, and I'm lucky I still have 2 of them that I can look at and think about it and enjoy the illustrations. I think you're right. A good storybook may appeal to a certain age group on its first go round, but if it's a good one, it'll continue to be available to them at all ages. Well, I wonder if we could take a minute, and if I can manage to share the screen, I would like to share this short sequence of slides which Delaram has sent me, and it includes the tiny owl that we were talking about. There it is, tiny owl picture books for everyone. And as you can see, it's a very serious looking little owl. Okay, but he also looks a bit mischievous, I think. What do you think, Delaram? Is he a bit mischievous, maybe? Maybe.
Yes, I think so, yes.
Exactly, yeah. So on the first slide, tell us a little bit about this book. Oh, sorry, I was already on the second slide. I should not be trusted with a PowerPoint. Okay, so there we have The Little Black Fish, your first book.
Yeah, so we talked about that. This is The Little Black Fish.
And then the next one, was that part of the first 10?
Yes, so The Parrot and Merchant came out in the first year that we published. I think it was the 3rd book that we published. And it's a story by Rumi. And the illustrator has interpreted the story in a different way. So originally we had a parrot and a merchant, and the merchant was always thought to be a man, but here we have a woman. And but it's a story about love and freedom. And yeah, it's a very beautiful story.
Yeah, the cover looks lovely. So then you talked about intercultural collaborations. Tell us a little bit about the new baby.
Yes, so we started intercultural collaborations because we wanted to see how books can be born with collaborations between authors and illustrators from different parts of the world. And this is a collaboration between a British author and an Iranian illustrator. It's about this family of 4 or 5 boys who are waiting for the new baby. And each of them wants the baby to be just like them. But then the baby comes and she's a girl, and and then she's and she's like herself. She's a little bit like each of the brothers, but then predominantly she's herself.
So that's her down here in the corner, is that right? In the lower corner of the boat?
So the baby there is the girl.
Yes.
And each of them are a scientist, artist, adventurer, dreamer.
Well, that's a great thing. Okay, and then the next slide is about Cinderella of the Nile. And I'm going to take issue with that since I was born and raised in Egypt, and I want to know why she has red hair.
Yes, so the story is...
unless she's using henna, which is okay.
No, actually, her name is Rhodopis, and she was Greek. She was born in an island in Greece, and she was kidnapped and taken into slavery, and she was sold in Egypt. So, and then this becomes the story of, in the familiar story of Cinderella and those sisters, because the other servants are jealous of her. And the master gives her these slippers, the red slippers, and she looks different. So that's well, yes. So I wanted to say why she has red hair. Her hair, Rhodopis, means red hair.
Okay. All right.
So
in that case, I accept the explanation.
Yes. But, all right. Yes. But then yeah, so there is a well, I have forgotten the story. Actually, the falcon god. What's her name?
Horus.
Why am I so forgetful now?
Yes.
Uh,
Horus. Horus,
yes.
Yes.
Yes, it comes and fetches
Catches her sugar.
one of the slippers and takes it to the pharaoh, and he comes and finds Rhodopis, and and he marries her, and so it is a Cinderella story, but it's a very old one, and I think this was taken from Herodotus, and I think it's somewhere in history. It has some origins in history, and I think the author and illustrator both researched a lot to see everything about this book, how the cat was depicted in and the river in Egyptian artwork. I mean, the ancient Egypt, but also they wanted to change it to something today and children's books. So it's a really artistic book, I think.
Yes, and as you can see, you've got people from very different parts of the world collaborating on a story from another part of the world.
Yes, exactly.
So,
yes.
Very international. And then you do have some new titles coming up. Are these ones that were published in this past year, or is it ones that you're working on for next year?
These are the ones that we have just published this year.
Neighborhood
Surprises. Yes, Neighborhood Surprise is about a neighborhood and how children, well, it's a very diverse neighborhood with all different ethnicities, and there's this old lady who wants to move to a retirement home, and children are trying to give a goodbye party for her, and they start to cook for her. And but they have to cook something that everybody can eat. So they consider vegetarian and vegan diets, and at the day they find out that Mrs. Fig, the old lady, is moving to a retirement home, but that's just on the other side of the street. It's not far away.
Oh, well, alhamdulillah, they can still come and visit her from time to time.
Yes.
That's good.
And they decide to have another party next year.
For sure.
Yes,
why not? Any excuse for a party.
Yeah. Sorry, Mrs. Cake is a book about the importance of listening to everybody. Maybe people have something important to tell you, even if they're not loud, especially if they're not loud. You have to listen. So that's a story about that, about Mrs. Cake, who's made all these cakes and tea for everybody to come and eat, and nobody listens. And the child and the cat help her to bring people in. And Gloria's Porridge is a retelling of an Ethiopian story. It's a folk tale about this cat who eats all the porridge, Gloria's porridge, and Gloria's mad, and the cat is scared, and some chain reaction happens with all the animals being nervous and scared and running, and then they have to think about what they're doing, and be kind again.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad the cat doesn't get into too much trouble, although he was a naughty cat. All right. And our final slide gives people information where they can go to get more information about Tiny Owl Publishing. So you've got the website, which is www.tinyowl.co.uk. Or for people who have Twitter, you can find them at tinyowl_books. If you're on Instagram, you can find them at tiny_owl_publishing. And as I said, there's a YouTube page or channel for them, which is youtube.com/Tiny Owl Books. So everybody, I want you to go out and find where you can find books, where to get them. In fact, do you have any bookstores in the United States? You have a distributor there, don't you? Where do you normally sell these books in the US?
Yes, so we have a distributor, and so all the bookshops, and so everybody can get them. Mm-hmm. They're on Amazon.com. The only thing is that some of our books are not published in the US. We sell the rights for some of our books to be published by other publishers in the States. So they are published there, but not by Tiny Owl. But we have, but this is only maybe 2 or 3 titles. The rest of them, yes, we have published them and we are publishing them. And you can find them on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, or, well, any independent bookshop, I think.
I was going to say that's a good idea. If anybody has an independent bookstore in their neighborhood, you should go there and tell them that you want them to stock some of Tiny Owl's books, because that will be good for the independent bookseller, and it will be good for Tiny Owl. Right? People should be proactive here. That's what we want them to do. And remember, people, okay, you can look at the back catalog too that's available and buy lots of books from Tiny Owl. But really, just remember, a Kindle is fine for reading text-heavy publications, but nothing beats holding a beautifully illustrated real book in your hands. Plus, if you hold on to it, your children can read it to their children. These are the kinds of books that Delaram is publishing. So, see, I want to send everybody to get books from Tiny Owl. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, you had a thought? I don't want to cut you off.
No, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for all of your kind words about Tiny Owl and for this interview. Thank you so much.
Inshallah khair for both of us. It will go up, inshallah, on the Karama YouTube channel. And we'll talk about making it available for you too, because you're on social media and we want people to know how much we support your work. You are a real Muslim woman leader. I'm very happy to have had the opportunity to interview you. Thank you, Delaram. And much luck going forward. Inshallah, things will get back to normal in a year or so.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.